Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 16 of our Exploring the CVerse series in TEW 2020. We are on to QAW, the Queens of American Wrestling. Yes, the first all-women's promotion that we've gotten to here in the series. And if you haven't already checked them out, yes, we've got 15 episodes before this one looking at 15 other CVerse companies. And so be sure to go through, check those out. And again, we will go through every starting company in the game. To kind of, finish up this series. So we're probably almost halfway there, something like that. But we're on to episode 16 here. And now we talk about the Queens of American Wrestling. And we start with a promotion that is tiny, and it is ranked 15th in the world, even though, tiny, 15th, that's fine. Only have $40,000 to work with, but understandable for a company that's not that big. 27% prestige, 37% momentum. And we start with the size as usual, 29 in the Mid-South. And to get to that small size, go from tiny to small, you only have to achieve 35 popularity in the Mid-South. So that's a pretty, I think, quick goal you can probably reach. It's all going to depend on the roster, though. And if you can get the ratings to be able to kind of pump that up to get to that 35. So I don't want to say it's going to happen, in 3 months or anything, but certainly a path is there to get to 35, move up to small. And again, really, with a company like this, it is trying to sort of build some cash up a little bit, but also knowing you don't have to pay as much when you can look at the contracts here and kind of see that you're, paying people. What I'm looking at, sort of the filtering here, $400 per show. Here, that's really your highest number. You've got a couple others in the 200s, but everybody else around $50 or less in terms of shows. And, as we'll get to in a second, you're only doing sort of the normal event schedule anyway. So money's not a huge deal, even though that's certainly nowhere near as much as the other companies we've talked about so far. But on to the product, because that is always important. Before we get there, though, as usual, we do need to kind of look at the backstory here. And founded in 2010, and, kind of that mix between the traditional American-style wrestling, luchadores, so you're blending lucha libre style with, again, sort of just your regular women's wrestling style in the U.S., and, have started to sort of build up a fan base, as we'll get to, sort of blurring the lines between the face, heel, Technico Rudo, and a lot of stables, as we'll talk about here in a second, to start things off. So certainly some parallels to other women's promotions, reality, of course. Go to a place like Stardom and those kind of things. But so really the narrative off the bat here is, can you sort of continue to grow women's wrestling? And, this is kind of the promotion that could be at the forefront of that. So that's the starting narrative, if you will, to use there. All right, to that product. As we said, it is kind of the blending of the American wrestling style, lucha libre style, and so American luchadores here. Or, kind of, I think this is probably the best way to look at it, is episodic lucha libre. And the reason why is that you have to have strong characters. You have to have good storylines. In-ring stuff is fine, but it clearly is something where the characters are very important. And that appeals to me because, you guys know, I really like to go in depth with characters and that sort of thing. And so building it as episodic television, which is, you see the binge watching here. So, kind of those running storylines week after week after week, which of course it's a little different here because it's more of the monthly stuff because you don't have a TV show just yet, but that's the comparison you can use with that. And it's also, as we noted, you do have a face-heel divide, but it's not enforced. So, that's kind of for you to play around with and decide how you want to move forward with that. Stables are an integral part. And as we said, we'll look at the stables here in just a second. You've got your blend of matches and angles here. So, of course, you're only worried about events right now. You don't have a TV show. But you do get the luxury of having some angles on there to kind of build up some stuff, which you need to do with the characters and the storylines. As we said, it's episodic TV. So, replace TV with event, however you want to do it. But also worth noting, recently, I feel like in the series, we've gone through a lot of the Japanese promotions where it's like, all right, well, everybody's going to destroy their body because of the style. Well, this is certainly different because it's lucha-based. So you don't have as much wear and tears. You don't have to worry about as many injuries. But you could have some of that because if you go down here, you do have crazy bumps or stunts you could pull off, which will give boost to your segments, but that could play a role in injuries. But just in terms of the actual, style itself, you're not going to have as much wear and tear, so can have people working a little bit longer in their careers because of that if they work this style along the way. You've got to have everyone with a gimmick. That is important, of course. So that, as we said, plays into the character aspect. As you see here, everyone would expect to use a gimmick. You're going to have a penalty, so everyone needs a gimmick. You got to have storylines everywhere, which we'll talk about those in a second too. QAW already has some good starting storylines, but there will be lots of storylines you'll have to put into play. As for the match aims you'll need for every show, storytelling and high spots. So again, high spots could eventually lead to some injuries, but just the style itself should not do that as much. And you'll be attractive to sponsors, very attractive indeed, because again, sort of just the product itself and all of that. So there you go. There's kind of a quick overview of the product. As always, you can change it as you see fit, but that is how it starts there. All right, to the event schedule. So again, 12 shows here, 12 events lined up. Not a whole lot. I mean, you do have some theme shows. Battle Bowl for the old WCW fans out there. Battle Bowl, you could use that just like WCW did, where you pair up random teammates in a Battle Bowl format, or you can do it another way too. But Trios Mania, so that can be a theme show in October. Certainly all about the Trios tags. Three-way dance, I mean, that could, you can decide how you want to do that. Could be a main event, just was a triple threat match, however you want to do it. But the main attraction on the event schedule is going to be in July, Crowning the Queen, and that is pretty much your Queen of the Ring tournament. And there's an actual belt called Queen of the Ring, which we'll get to in a second. So you do have some theme shows here, as I always say. That's kind of fun. You can lean into with that. It's better than just having, maybe just generic show names that you don't really know what to do with. You kind of have to make them your own. But if you want a decent starting point, I think this is pretty good, just to, have several of those you could sort of lean into and decide what to do with them just based on the show name. So that helps out a little bit, I think, there. All right, so again, coverage. You have no coverage anywhere. I mean, you have no broadcasting. That's not surprising, right? It's just, you're a tiny company, need to make the move to small, start to build up some cash, start to build up some exposure. But that's more of a long-term play when it comes to QAW. There with that, to the titles we go, and as I said, the Queen of the Ring, that is your July show. So, basically you're building up until that big event, the season finale. So that's sort of your go-to one there, and so that can be a fun thing to add to the mix. Elsewhere, you've got your normal set of titles. You got the Shockwave title, which is just the mid-card title here. Tag teams are highly regarded in terms of the belts. So you see 29 prestige for the tag team belts here. World Championship is at 35. So, you've kind of got, your normal set of titles and your Queen of the Ring tournament in July. So let's look at some other stuff here before we get into the roster. Looking at, let's see. Oh, okay. Let's look at this stuff, then we'll get to the stables. So backstage rating is good. You don't have to worry about that. Of course, no developmental, no child company, no training facility. You're a tiny company. We expect that. You're not a part of the only alliance, which is the Confederation of the Territories. Relationships, there's only one, and that is with CILL. So you have a talent trading agreement there. Now, if we look at CILL, if you're thinking, all right, well, how many workers could I potentially bring in? I've already filtered this when I went through my notes. So this is kind of your, these are your women's workers in CILL. So this is kind of what you have to choose from if you want to do some talent trading, those kind of things. So it's not a huge roster, but it's someone, right? And you've got some that are somewhat over in America, so that helps a little bit too, to kind of be able to push that forward from a popularity standpoint. Again, home base is Mid-South, so someone like this, 17, doesn't sound like a lot, but it's better than nothing. So yeah, I mean, I think that's something you can use to your advantage, and of course you can go out and sign workers if needed too. But it is important to note, I don't know how much you'll necessarily have to lean on the CILL relationship and the talent trading, but it is there because you do have 29 active wrestlers. So it's a pretty good starting point for a tiny company where you are only running 12 shows a year right now. So I think that's fine. Again, it's not necessary to use the talent trading, but it is there if you need it. So that was again, there's not a whole lot elsewhere because it's a tiny company. There's not a whole lot of note. But if we do look at the storyline, actually let's look at the teams first. So you got some teams here. kind of a mix. Some people have a lot of experience, some people have no experience, but as we said, if you want to lean into the tag team route, you can. Highly regarded prestige standpoint with the belts, so you can do that there. Stables. So 5 stables to start off with here. So you've got a pretty good group, and really 2. 3 are an important part of the landscape. Of course, these 2 are not rated because they're alliances. So I think you've got a nice blend here. You can kind of read them up here and sort of talk about, what their goals are. This one is win all costs, right? Stormfront here, just kind of feuding with old friends and those kind of things. Vicious Streak for this one here, the Clenched Fist. You've got the Furies, basically a group of badass women who just they just use violence to their, to their strength. There's so many other ideas you could work with stables, but they're clearly a big part of the company. So that is worth noting there. To the roster we go, and we're going to start with the creative section. So when I looked through the roster, it was pretty clear. I mean, it says these are your franchise players. Danielle Sweetheart here. I think she's a 4-time winner of the Queen of the Ring. There's your fact, the trivia note for this example. But I mean, look at the stats. Like, the stats are really good. And, so won at Street 3 years. Maybe I was wrong. I thought she had won it 4 times. But, so good stats here. Someone you can definitely build around right off the start. She's going to be in your main event. There's no question about it. One of the top talents, popularity 33 to start off with here. So, clearly someone that, you just have to try to keep. But here is the sort of potential shining star of the group here, Alina America, who is 30 and current champion, the current world title holder. But look at this. Star quality 91, sex appeal 96. So you've got, as it says right here, she's a license to print money. Now the problem is what it says previously right here, and that is, how on earth is she not going to get stolen away at some point? So if you've played with this promotion before, maybe you can tell us how quickly she gets stolen away. But I think it's pretty clear she is going to be on the radar of the big companies, and keeping her could be an issue. But I would lean into that star quality right off the bat because that could be something you can definitely lean into. And the sex appeal, if you want to have stuff that's rated on those segment-wise, you can add that to the mix, however you want to do it. But clearly there's something there. And you do, in this company, you're going to need people who can have some charisma and be able to work the mic because, it's just as we said, you got to have some angles, you got to have characters and storylines. So that's important. Next big thing is you got Little Miss Perfect here, who sounds perfect if you just judge it by the name. Decent work here. Obviously can build up skills and stuff, but only 25. The mid-card champ, the Shockwave champion right now. Good group of, hot prospects. We talked about Pinky Perez, who's also, I guess, in CILL. I don't know what the contract situation is there, but you can look into the stats for this group. And as we said, what's important here, Commissioner Bob, which it's just, I don't know, Commissioner Bob, that's just great. Having an on-screen commissioner, which I know is not everybody's jam. As you guys know, I use that in the WWE save, but and actually using the WCW one too, but I think it's important here because, as we said, mic work, these are pretty good skills for a company like this, and good popularity. So I would be using Cherry Bomb here as much as humanly possible, because you use in angles, again, whether it's the on-screen role, you could always change it to something else, but good popularity, which will help the ratings, but also just skill-wise, these numbers are really good. So would definitely lean into, if I was starting with this promotion right off the bat, I am using Cherry Bomb here in as many segments as I can get her on the show with good mic work, because it's just, I think that's the way to go. So you really have to be able to lean into some of these because, as we said, storylines are important here, and it is more based on, kind of the episodic nature, having good angles and those kind of things. So and then you go through and look at the work rate and all that stuff with everyone else. But so really, roster-wise, I'll do my usual filter here. You guys know I love the star quality, but I just do this for fun. I really it's not the end-all be-all, but I think it's interesting to always look at just, who has the biggest upside in terms of future stars and stuff. So she got a nice little group here, as we said. America, clearly 91. Incredible. But, course, the founder of the company here, not an active wrestler, so it's not really applies as much. But like Foxy LaRue here, 32, got a lot of good stats, great charisma, maybe some of the highest charisma of anybody in the company. So yeah, like I would definitely be using her a lot too here. And of course, Jack. Then there's Jack. Jack's everywhere, isn't he? How many companies has Jack Avatar been in at this point? Like, this guy's got to have a world record for how many companies he's been in. Pamela Rojo here. Yeah, I mean, good stuff. So you can look through all these, of course, but I think it's a good starting roster, again, just for the company and what you expect from this kind of company. It's a tiny one, and, you just need a good versatile roster, and I think you've got that here with QAW. So there you go. There's some thoughts on Queens of American Wrestling, and as I said, it's a different challenge because it is an all women's wrestling company, and if your goal is to become the number one company in the world, probably a very, very long play to be able to do that in this particular game, but it is something that I think can be fun because it's a different approach where you're filling your entire show with nothing but women's wrestling. And it's kind of my SmackDown sometimes in the WWE save, I feel like, these days. But yeah, I mean, it's again, I think that there's a lot of fun to this one as well, just because there are a lot of good personalities to work with, and I like the fact that it is character driven. So coming up with ideas for those characters, I think that'd be a lot of fun to really try to build this company up from tiny to the next step to small and then beyond to see how far it can possibly go. And hope that your big stars don't get stolen away, which will happen at some point. But there you go. There's some thoughts on QAW. Appreciate you guys. As always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And again, go back through the archives. You can check out all the other episodes in our Exploring the CVerse series. And we will continue to explore the CVerse series and look at all the other ones here, as I said, in the, just in the game starting off with. And we'll have more videos on the way. The WWE. Hopefully we get back to the AEW and WCW ones. I am working hard to kind of go back and plot my storylines to make sure they're fresh on my mind, because it just I lost a lot of those, kind of that freshness of the storylines, remembering what I had in mind and all that can be a challenge sometimes. But anyways, that are some, like I said, we'll go back through and just hit that subscribe button. That way you can check out all the videos when they do come out. We'll have some new saves starting soon, some new series we'll have on the channel. So appreciate you guys as always. And up next, in our Exploring the CVerse series, we head to Mexico as we go to EMLL.